What is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of F1 Fantasy Pole Position. It is Wednesday, March 19th. My name is Ewan, and on today's episode, I'm going to go over my Chinese Grand Prix team selection, along with some pricing algorithms, budget rising, which chip we should play in China, if any, and then, like I said, team selection at the end. Hopefully you guys had a better Australia than I did. It was not too great, but I've been over that in the review episode, right? 1 hour after the Grand Prix. And then, in the chip strategy episode that I put out on Monday. But hopefully you guys caught those videos. You would have done that if you had liked the video, subscribed to the YouTube channel. So any support is always greatly appreciated. We are closing in on 2,000 guys. So let's get there before the Chinese Grand Prix. Maybe we'll do something silly on the deadline live stream. Deadline live stream, I heard you say. Yes. I'm back on Saturday morning, Friday night, whatever you want to call it in your part of the world. I will be up bright and early debating what I'm going to do with the team. I'm in a pretty good spot right now, but as always, I'm going to say this off the top. We're always going to wait for the free practices and the sprint qualifying to be done on sprint weekends. Don't make any early transfers. Don't activate chips early. It is so key. You never know what can happen in F1. There could be a crash, there could be rain, the entire race weekend could get wiped out. We never know. So just hold on to those chips, just stay away from activating them, and we will get it all done on Saturday morning, just 1 hour before the deadline this week. The 2 hour last week was a little bit of a season opening special, but yes, 1 hour to answer all your questions. I will be here bright and early, cup of coffee, good to go. Let's get into it here with a Chinese Grand Prix preview. Ignore that first slide, that didn't update annoyingly. Last 3 seasons here, third for overtakes and 3 DNFs in last year's Grand Prix. 2024 winner was Max Verstappen. As you can see here, 16 corners, 2 DRS zones. Pretty fun track. I was watching F1 Unchained's preview. He was doing a qualifying lap that was quite enjoyable to watch. The right-hander at the beginning, never really noticed. I mean, we only got China back on the calendar last season, so I had not seen it since I started watching. And that first corner is brutal. So pretty tough for rookies, but as you'll see later in the episode, if you check out the timestamps in the description below, I'm not too keen on rookies this week. But this is the track for China. Fairly fun track. We get the sprint, we get the qualifying, sprint qualifying, and the Grand Prix this weekend. So lots of action out on the track. Pirelli preview here, kind of giving us the compound C2, C3, C4 for this weekend. That's the same as last season. As you can see on the right-hand side here, circuit information. It's going to be stressful on the tires, heavy braking, lateral energy, a little bit okay on the downforce. Track evolution is huge, and it doesn't look like we're going to get anything washed away. So from Friday to Sunday, we could see some huge changes in the track, in the times. Friday, 22 degrees Celsius, 71 degrees Fahrenheit, sunny. Saturday, right at qualifying, is going to be 23 degrees Celsius, 74 degrees Fahrenheit, and sunny. And then Sunday, a little bit hotter, but more cloudy, so maybe the track doesn't heat up as much. 24 degrees Celsius, 76 degrees Fahrenheit. I did see F1 Big Data say this morning that it has gone from 0% chance of rain to 5% chance of rain. And a lot of us F1 fantasy managers are like, rain. We are shuddering at the thought of more rain on the F1 fantasy calendar. Looking at 2024 notable for performances here, Max Verstappen came away with 58 points, an absolutely dominant weekend. He won the sprint from 3rd place on the grid, then won the Grand Prix as well. Norris with 36 points. That was when McLaren kind of started to be like, okay, I see you, Papaya, and went from strength to strength there. Piastri here is highlighted for 12 points. That is kind of interesting. Just remember that number, 12 points for later in the episode. Ocon with 12 and Stroll with 9. You'll understand why I highlighted those 3 drivers in just a little bit. But now that we've had our first kind of taste of pricing in Australia, the pricing algorithm has been confirmed. So this is how it is looking. I'm pretty sure this is it. F1 Fantasy Tools, fantastic place. The Discord is phenomenal. I'm I won't speak for all the other content creators, but I know I would be lost without them. So if anyone from that Discord is watching this video, thank you for all the effort that you put in and make my life especially so much easier. So the algorithm is it's like a 3 race rolling average divided by 3 times that asset price. But right now we're only 1 or 2 races into the season, so budgets are a little bit all over the place. The theory going on right now is after race or in race 4, a lot of the DNFs that all the rookies and Fernando Alonso and Carlos Sainz suffered will fall away, and those guys will shoot up in price. So we need to watch this. But essentially, this is the formula. There's 2 tiers. If you're above 20 million, you grow at a different rate compared to if you're below 20 million. And this is where people like me that lost value, as you can see all the way up there, I scored 52 points. I'm 901K in the world, and I lost 1.8 million in budget. It was not too pretty for me in Australia. So getting the budget back is going to be key for me. That is my main priority this week. I'll get into that a little bit in chip selection. But this is the pricing algorithm right now. And because the F1 Fantasy Tools Discord is so fantastic, I've kind of taken this data from them. So credit to them. They have been fantastic. I did not do this. I'm just kind of putting it onto like a slideshow kind of thing, but building the budget. So all of these drivers now, we can predict how many points they are going to have to score in China to get into the great, the good, the poor, or the terrible category. And as you can see here, if you had a strong Australia, you are sitting pretty. Lando Norris, -23. He'd have to score -23 points this week to still get a 0.3 price rise. That's 2 DNFs. That's a DNF and falling 3 places and not scoring any points and like all that stuff. To fall 0.3, he'd have to get 2 DNFs straight up. -42 is how he would get into the terrible category. So as you can see, Lando Norris, if you have him, pretty safe. You can bank on that 0.3 price rise. You got Verstappen here, Leclerc and Hamilton are a little bit trickier. As you can see here, Leclerc needs to score 19 points to get his 0.3 price rise. Hamilton needs to score 25 points, but Russell needs to score 1 point to get his 0.3 price rise. Antonelli is at -9, and that will guarantee him a 0.6 million price rise. And considering how aggressive and attacking he was in China, even if he has a DNF in the sprint, like a -20, it's going to, I still would kind of back him in the Grand Prix to make stuff up in like getting some qualifying points, getting overtake points, getting positions gain points. So I wouldn't worry too much about Antonelli. He is definitely like kind of right bang in the front of my brain this week to bring into my team. As you can see here, Lawson 38, or he needs 27 points to avoid another 0.6 million price drop. Albon, Sainz, all that stuff there. Sainz is particularly hard. He has to score 26 points this weekend to just avoid the 0.6 million price drop, which is doable, but like, dang, that would have to be a stellar weekend from him. Going over here to the next 10 drivers, Gasly, Tsunoda, Stroll, Alonso, Ocon, Hülkenberg, Doohan, Behrman, Hadjar, Bortoleto. And you know what, guys? I'm not going to list off all these numbers for too much longer, but I will take these tables and I'll put them on X, I'll put them on TikTok, and at F1 Fantasy U, and you can follow me on there. And you can like check them all out for yourself. But what I really want to get to is, and then there's got the constructors here as well. So what I really want to get to is the fact that there are some assets that are clearly going to continue falling, and there are some assets that are clearly going to continue to rise. And if you have lost budget like I have, it might be wildcard time for us. This early in the season, race 2, it's going to be kind of tough. But as you can see here, there are some other budgets here like McLaren, Mercedes, Haas, probably not going to fall. Red Bull needs to score 12 points. Racing Bull needs to score 19 points to get into the great category. So there are some stuff there. But like I said, we have some problem children. We have 6 drivers who are still expected to fall the maximum amount, 0.6. Liam Lawson, Carlos Sainz, Fernando Alonso, Jack Doohan, Isaac Hadjar, and Gabriel Bortoleto. Lawson just had a pretty awful weekend in general. So I've got here on the 2 tables, if you're listening on the podcast, flip over to YouTube real quick, like the video, subscribe, that way you don't miss it, and then check out these tables that I've got here. So these are the problem children, is what I'm labeling them as for this week. Liam Lawson, Carlos Sainz, Fernando Alonso, Jack Doohan, Isaac Hadjar, Gabriel Bartolomeo. First column is score what they need to score to rise in price. So not even the max rise in price, the 0.6, just the next one, the 0.2. Lawson needs to score 33, Sainz needs to score 31, Alonso 28, Doohan and Hadjar 26, and Gabriel Bortoleto 23. Now, we can all hope that something like this happens. Maybe Liam Lawson turns it around, has a fantastic second weekend in the Red Bull, but I'm not sure that that is on the cards for any of these drivers to score above 20 points. And then if you go to the next column here, it's score to avoid max price fall. So they need to score, Lawson's is wrong, that's 27. Sainz is 26, Alonso's 24, Doohan's 23, Hadjar's 23, and Bortoleto's 21. Still not very attainable for, I think, these kind of back of the pack guys. Like, they're not, so you don't score any points for sprint qualifying. So there's 3 scoring sessions this weekend: the sprint, qualifying, and the Grand Prix. I don't see Bortoleto, Hadjar, or Jack Doohan getting, maybe Jack Doohan can get above 10 points, but Hadjar, Bortoleto, I don't really see scoring above 10 points. Alonso scoring 24 points. While he did have a good Chinese Grand Prix last year, especially the overtakes in the final stint of the Grand Prix where he was on the medium tire, he was just like picking off people left and right. I don't think we can trust him to do that again, especially, like, I know Lance Stroll got 6th last week in Australia, but Aston Martin in general have looked a little rougher than a lot of us were predicting, like, before testing. I mean, I was probably Aston Martin's number one hater in the preseason, but not even I expected them to have that bad of a testing. So Lance Stroll getting 6th in Australia was pleasantly surprising. But yeah, Carlos Sainz 26, Liam Lawson 37. So these are 6 drivers that if you have, I have 3 of these drivers in my squad. If you have 3 or more, we've got a problem, because there's also the desired drivers over here. These are 6 drivers who pretty much are almost guaranteed to rise again in price, and we need to get on them. We cannot afford to fall 1.2 million off the back of these drivers. So Antonelli, Albon, Stroll, Ocon, Hülkenberg, and Behrman are all very easily going to, maybe not Behrman, but most of those assets are easily going to rise another 0.6 million. Antonelli, -9, Albon, -1, Stroll, -5, Ocon, 1 point, Hülkenberg, -11. So these guys would have to have a disastrous weekend in China, which has a lot more runoff. It's easier, like, you can make more mistakes and get away with them in China compared to, like, Australia, where it's like pretty much a street track and there's just barriers all over the place. China has a little bit more runoff, it's a little bit more forgiving. You can kind of survive some mistakes over there. So these drivers here, the 6 drivers here, these are the ones that we should be targeting. We should be trying to get off of the problem children, and we should be trying to get on the desired drivers. That's the whole kind of point I've been trying to make in this episode. So hopefully you guys are following along the table here. As you can see, like, Antonelli needs to score -21 to fall the max amount again, and then he would just go back to his season starting price. So that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. It would be pretty disastrous if we move on to him and then he falls another 0.6 million in price. But yeah, I don't think he's going to. -9. But like I said, all these prices are projections. It's pretty much 100%. But until it actually happens and we can see this for 2 or 3 more races, that is when it will be like 100% locked in, and we can just predict this every week, bang, 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 and we will know what is coming in F1 Fantasy. And that is where we get to kind of maneuver around. But it's important right now for most of us to kind of get back on the right track, because some of us made a misstep, and, you know, it is what it is at this point. We can't do anything about it. But yeah, it was rough in Australia. A lot of people have been commenting, and yeah, I feel you right there. Like 52 points. I'm not sure a lot of people have actually scored that low. I've seen some people that have scored a little bit lower than that, but there's been some people that are like, yeah, I scored 72, pretty miserable weekend. I'm like, I could only dream of 72 points. So yeah, there's a lot of improvement to be made for a lot of us in F1 Fantasy, and we're going to do it together here on F1 Fantasy Pole Position. Going over here to the kind of another bigger question this week, which chip should I play, Limitless or Wildcard? Now, before I get into this, I want to cover off something that the FIA is coming in with a new technical directive this weekend for rear wing testing and stuff like that. I asked tech wizard Terry at Coffee Corner Motorsport if we should be worried about this. Like, if you're not really on Limitless or Wildcard, is it worth playing no negative to avoid any disqualification penalties? And Terry said, nah, teams are probably going to know on Friday or beforehand if they conform with it. So no need to worry about there. So from tech wizard Terry, apparently it's going to be okay. So we don't need to really worry about no negative. So it comes down to Limitless or Wildcard. Which chip should I play? Now, you could be fine and you don't have to play a chip this weekend. It's just that with the budgets rising, now is like the best time. Early on in the season is the best time to play Limitless because you have a bigger delta over the rest of the field. Teams can't bring in like one or two or three of those assets later in the races if all budget goes well. So why should you play Limitless? Well, if you gain budget in Australia and you have at least 5 rising assets, so that includes the 2 constructors, that includes all 5 drivers. If you have 5 out of the 7 assets, I think you can get away with playing Limitless in China. You should be okay. Just double check free practice 1 and sprint qualifying to make sure that it kind of reveals 2 standout teams plus max. As of right now, it's 7:30 in Germany. The 4 assets that I would have locked in are Lando, Oscar, McLaren, and Max. So you've got 3 other spots there to play with, a constructor and 2 more drivers. The kind of like mainstream theory would be like get Ferrari, Leclerc, and Hamilton, I guess. But I mean, there's a world where you can play with George Russell in your lineup. You can do other things like that. And yeah, we'll see what practice 1 and the sprint qualifying kind of shows us on Friday morning. Wildcard, however, is if you've lost budget in Australia and you can't get to at least 5 rising assets for less than a -10, that's when I would start to activate the wildcard, or at least thinking about activating the wildcard. Also, you kind of just have to be okay waiting to play Limitless until later in the season. And at this point, I am, because in my head, getting back on track with the budget is far more important right now than getting points, because the points will come. But we can't, if we can't afford those drivers later in the season to score those points, we are in deep, deep trouble. So that's why I am mostly moving on to the wild card this week. There is a world where I can take a -10 with 5 rising assets, but the opportunity to kind of gain almost like almost 4 million in budget is like staring me right in the face. And I'm going to go into it in the team selection here. But I did ask you guys, what chip are you playing on my X account at F1 Fantasy U? And you should go follow me there. I'm talking about F1 Fantasy all the time. And 411 votes, so pretty good sample size here. So yes, playing the Limitless chip, 31.4%. Yes, playing the wildcard chip, 14.4%. And no, not playing a chip at all, 54.3%. So still the majority of you guys are not playing a chip. Let me know in the comments below if that has changed, what your lineup plans are, what your chip plans are. In the last episode I did, Chip Strategy, I think that had like over 7,500 comments or something like that. And I really tried to respond to all of them. Hopefully I did. Give yourself a shout out if I did not, and I will make sure to respond to that comment. But yes, I'm always trying to respond to every single comment on the YouTube video. So please, reach out in the comments below or hit me up on X. I'm happy to talk F1 Fantasy. But this is where your guys' heads is at, heading into China. And now I'm going to go over some team selection. All right, so it is team selection time over here as I try to find my mouse. There we go, perfect. So as long as a lot of you have probably seen this, Oscar Piastri, Carlos Sainz, Gabriel Bortoleto, Isaac Hadjar, Esteban Ocon, McLaren, and Williams are my current lineup. And yeah, look at that. Sainz, Bortoleto, Hadjar, all probably sinking this week. However, the problem I'm running into is not only are they sinking, I just don't really have enough budget to get on to a lot of the rising assets. So if we just take out Sainz, Bortoleto, and Hadjar here, this leaves me with 24.8 million in the bank. Sort this by value. So it means I can get on Nico Hülkenberg, which is fine. Leaves me 17.8. Then I've got Lance Stroll here, which is 8.7. He's likely to rise again this week, but that leaves me with this weird price point of 9.1 million, and I can't get on any riser here. Like, Behrman might rise, but I still don't feel great about the Haas. If they show something on Friday that like they fixed it, they figured out what went wrong in Australia, then maybe I could get on Behrman and just take a -10 for this week. However, I don't think, I mean, I'll wait to see what happens, but I'm not feeling great about it. And Oscar Piastri likely to score enough to go back up 0.3 million. But as you saw, he had a tough time in China last year, 12 points, kind of fell back on Sunday. So we'll see if he's probably learned some stuff from his experience there last year, but you never know, just something to watch. So if I took out all 4 of those drivers, that would be me on a -20. I've only got 2 free transfers. So just like right off the bat, if you can roll to get to 3 free transfers for any week in the season, that could always save you from activating your wild card, because then you can get to 4 transfers for a -10. Once you get past -10, I'm always in the wild card zone for that kind of stuff. Anything more than that, and that's like a definite wild card. So if you're on a -20, -30, like, I know it's nice to have your chips, but it's time to activate them. Use that wild card. Save yourself the 20 points here. So this would be my kind of construction of the squad here. I'm going to keep McLaren. Williams, I feel confident enough that they're going to go back up 0.6. I'm going to keep them in the squad. Plus, like, unless I see something very bad on Friday and they're not looking good at all, then maybe we'll have to reconfigure this a little bit. But I'm pretty sure I'm going to keep McLaren and Williams. Ocon seems 1 point to get up 0.6. Doesn't feel that bad at all. So that's where we're at with that. So going here, I'm thinking that we're going to bring Antonelli. Seems like a pretty big lock to rise 0.6. Going to bring in Alexander Albon. Also seems like a lock to go up 0.6. Along with cover boy for today's episode, Lance Stroll. And then Nico Hülkenberg. So actually, Nico Hülkenberg, is on the deadline live stream. Lance Stroll is on today's episode. So right here is my squad. 0.2 left in the bank. So glad I didn't go down anymore. That would have been a pretty big problem. If you're looking at the price projection or the price rises that I was showing you earlier in the episode, if you need to go check that out, timestamps in the description below. This team, in theory, could rise 3.9 million. That is going to put me back on track to get to where I need to go in F1 Fantasy. And it could suffer tremendously in the points department again. I mean, we're going to see some scores this week, guys, where people play their Limitless and they might score like 400 points. And if they're coming down from there, and like if they've scored like 100 or 200 points in Australia plus another 400, like we could be looking at a deficit of about 500 points in our F1 Fantasy mini leagues. But don't fret, because we will have the Limitless in our back pocket. We will be back on track with some budget in our team. And that's the thing, where you play the Limitless, you'll only grow budget from your Australia team. So don't use your free transfers. I mean, you can use them, but they're going to cancel out with the Limitless chip. The team that you locked in for Australia, that's the team that you're going to grow budget with in China while you're playing your Limitless chip. Just a heads up there. I tweeted that out yesterday, so go check out that tweet, post, whatever we're calling it. These days, I can't keep track. But so this is where my head is at for a wild card team. And I know on last week's or Monday's episode, I was like, send me your lineups, like blah, 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 blah. Everyone sent their lineup and I tried to respond individually to each of them. So that's why I have not gotten to that point here. However, I can't build a Limitless squad without like activating the chip. So I'm not going to do that, but I can show you where my head would be at. I would definitely get in Lando, Max. See, I can't even afford Piastri. That's how expensive those assets are. But Lando, Max, Oscar, McLaren, that would be the basis of any Limitless team that I have in F1 Fantasy this weekend for the Limitless chip. Now, I've been concentrating on this T1 team because it scored 52 points and it was pretty rough, but I do have some other teams here. Like, let's see. I know a lot of people were on the Ferrari Mercedes build, and let me kind of readjust this screen a little bit. There we go. And kind of had something like this here. So Piastri, Ocon, Doohan, Hadjar, Bortoleto with Ferrari and Mercedes. I think this team scored like 76 points or something like that. Not great either. So here, it's not great either because I've got 1, 2, 3 falling assets. If I take those all out, that leaves me with 18.1 million. So even if I want to get in Hulkenberg, that only is with 8.1, and I don't believe, I mean, I guess I'll have just enough to bring back Hadjar and Bortoleto, but it's not looking pretty. So, like, yeah, I'd have to bring back, it's just not going to go too well. So on that squad, the only way I could really go is also bring out Piastri, but let's see. This squad is probably more in line for a wild card because to get more budget out of it, you need to take out more of your expensive assets. Like I'm going to add Kimi Antonelli back in there, leaves me with 14.8 million. So even if I bring in Stroll, 6.1, I can barely fit in Antonelli. So that's another negative 10. So maybe this team could survive with a negative 10 if you're on a Ferrari Mercedes build. Well, that's a negative 20. Never mind there. So yeah, this would still be in wildcard range as well. So the bottom line is, I think a lot of us are going to be activating the wildcard. Some people can try to like take a hit this week and then take a hit the following week to fix the squad and save the wild card. But I think with the scores so low for all these guys to kind of rise in budget and whatnot, it's really not that bad to rip the wild card, fix it all, get back on track, and then we'll just have to cross that bridge when we get to it. Whenever we're in Spain with the new flexi wings technical directive, see if there's some massive shakeup here before Japan as well regarding the rear wings. So there's a lot to kind of consider, but yeah, there's ways that you can get on to rising assets with 2 free transfers. Do that. No need to activate the wild card. Like 2 or 3 free transfers, 2 free transfers or a hit, I think is going to be less than a wild card for me. 4 or more transfers, I think that's wildcard territory. And if you don't need to use any transfers, hit that limitless and have a great weekend. But once again, I'm just going to remind you guys, deadline stream on Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, Friday night, wherever you are in the world. Join me, cup of coffee, your beverage of choice, and we will go over all of the conundrums before the F1 Fantasy deadline. It is going to be early, but it's going to be hectic. We'll have some stuff to go over from Friday practice. We'll have some sims out for sure. We'll have some practice data as well. So I am very much looking forward to that. If anything crazy happens on Friday, I might have to do a Friday evening stream, but to be confirmed. I'm hoping there's nothing crazy, but yeah. And then like, if you can't make it to the deadline stream, like comment below, even like 2 or 3 days from now, and I will get to that to answer it as we go, or you can follow me on X at F1 Fantasy Ewan. But that is going to do it for today's episode, the Chinese Grand Prix team selection. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, like the video, it helps out a lot. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are closing in on 2,000 subscribers, so let's get that done before the Chinese Grand Prix. I would greatly appreciate it. And I haven't said it here yet, but if you want 50% off your first month at F1 Fantasy Tools, use code EWIN50 and you can get 50% off your first month. And also, don't activate it until Friday, the 21st, because if you activate on the 21st, you'll get a whole month, and that will cover the next 4 Grand Prix for the price of 1 month. It's like a cup of coffee, like a bad cup of coffee for the price of all this F1 Fantasy Tools data at your fingertips. But good luck in China if I don't see you again, but hopefully you join me for the deadline stream bright and early on Saturday morning, Saturday evening. But yeah, once again, thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and I will talk to you next time.